Hello, my name is Daria Bailey, and today we will be focusing on Brookshore Industries. Is servant leadership the best for my organization? I am proud to represent Brookshore Industries as a newly appointed board member, and I have been asked to review servant leadership to see if it is a tool that could be best utilized in Brookshore as we seek to move forward and continuing to be the manufacturing giant that we are in the Midwest. The purpose of us reviewing this information is for us to expand our knowledge and understanding the beliefs of servant leadership within an organization, particularly Brookshore Industries. As a scholar practitioner, I want to ensure that we have well-founded, evidence-based approach information that will assist us in shifting our culture in a new direction. Over the years, there have been many great texts authored on the subject of servant leadership. Herein, it is my goal to compile the insights of some of these experts and extract the most relevant information and present it in a thorough yet efficient manner. I do this for the sole purpose of increasing our knowledge as it relates to servant leadership with hopes of expanding and adopting true authority and true leadership in our organization. Where examples are provided, the data that is represented is from detailed and outlined in articles that I will be evaluating. It is my intent to give credit to the authors who have published scholarly journal articles. We will evaluate 2 articles. Article number 1, and from here on out referred to as article number 1, Achieving High Organization Performance Through Servant Leadership by David Melcar and Susan Bosco. In article number 2, Antecedents of Team Potency and Team Effectiveness, an examination of goal and process clarity and servant leadership by J. Hugh and Robert C. Linden. The first question that we should all ask ourselves is, what exactly is servant leadership? Robert K. Greenleaf first coined the phrase servant leadership in his 1970 essay, The Servant as a Leader. However, it's an approach that people have used for many centuries. As a servant leader, you are considered a servant first. Your focus is on the needs of others, especially team members, before you consider your own needs. As a servant leader, you should always acknowledge other people's perspectives, give them support that they need in order to meet their work and professional and personal goals. And it's a good idea to include your employees in decision-making process where appropriate to build a sense of community within your team. This leads to higher engagement, more trust, stronger relationships with team members and stakeholders. It could also lead to increased innovation within an organization. First, we will review article number 1. We will take a look at the philosophical perspective. In this article, the authors of the article sought to investigate whether a servant leader could develop a corporate culture that attracts or develops other leaders. The authors further noted that leadership is a relationship between a person who influences behavior or actions of other people and those who are also influenced. This paper examines the how of servant leadership and not necessarily the what. Here, the authors attempt to encourage the readers to consider servant leadership as a viable option for leaders today, as opposed to the good old command and control that many have had to be subjected to over years. Next, we will take a look at the research and design of article number 1. The research and design oftentimes refers to the overall strategy that was used to integrate different components of the study in a coherent and logical manner. The authors want to ensure that they effectively address the research problem. Oftentimes, the research design serves as a blueprint for the collection, measurement, and analysis of data. In article number 1, we see that there are two hypotheses. Both are clearly stated. Hypothesis number 1, mid-level managers who report to servant leaders will exhibit above average levels of servant leader characteristics themselves. Hypothesis number 2, there will be no difference in the observations of servant leader characteristics according to worker age, years of experience, or level of education. As we continue to look at the research design for Article 1, we should note that a research design will typically include how data is collected, what instruments were utilized, and how the instruments intended to collect and analyze the data. The respondents for this investigation included 59 mid-level managers and their employees at 3 separate automobile dealerships. Data was collected utilizing a servant leader questionnaire. Unfortunately, the response rate was only 27% for those who returned the questionnaires. From the limited data that was collected, the authors did note that 91% of the respondents were male. After analyzing the data of article number 1, the authors of the article have concluded that senior leaders who exhibit servant leader behaviors may be able to encourage other organizational leaders to use their style of leadership. The authors did note that the sample size was somewhat small, yet still effective. The authors further concluded that servant leadership can be successful in a competitive for-profit service organization without providing adequate research to support that position. The strength of article number 1 is that this is a scholarly, peer-reviewed article. We must give credit to those who conducted this study, as it was a published article which was peer-reviewed. This article also offers information as to how to consider implementing servant leadership in an organization. Noted weaknesses in article number 1 include: the title of the article is not supported by evidence-based research. Unfortunately, the authors of this study did a very poor job in providing evidence-based research that would support the title of Achieving High Organization Performance Through Servant Leadership. This article also lacked detailed information with regards to how the respondents were chosen. Unfortunately, the readers only know that 59 individuals who served in mid-level managed capacity within the automobile industry were chosen. How or why they were chosen is left unknown to the readers. The sample size used in this article does not necessarily represent the population. It would have been helpful if the authors of this article has simply waited until they received additional responses to their surveys, because it did not look very good that only 27% of the respondents responded to the servant leadership questionnaire. I was challenged by the fact that the authors made generalized statements that the information retrieved throughout this report could be used in nonprofit organizations and service organizations as well. Unfortunately, there is no evidence-based research to support such claims, and therefore these claims should not be accepted as true. Last but certainly not least, this article has only been cited 66 times. we have been taught throughout the program that we should pay attention to who the authors are and whether others recognize their works as being work that would be cited throughout any type of documentation that we utilize during the course. We're now moving on to article number 2. We're going to look at the philosophical perspective of article number 2. The title of article number 2 is Antecedents of Team Potency and Team Effectiveness, an examination of goal, process, clarity, and servant leadership. In this article, the authors seek to investigate and integrate team leadership literatures with motivation theories by examining goal and process clarity and servant leadership. The authors extend the classic input-output model for team effectiveness by integrating goal and process clarity into understanding and clearly supporting servant leadership. The authors attempt to incorporate servant leadership as a moderator of the relationship between goal and process clarity. Goal setting theory suggests that clear goals lead to team improvement. The authors hope to include that servant leadership acts as an aid in this, improving the team effectiveness as well. Research and design of article number 2. This research was quantitative, evidence-based research. The authors had 4 different hypotheses. They were all clearly stated. Hypothesis number 1, goal clarity positively relates to A, team performance, and B, team organizational citizenship behavior through partial, mediating, effective, and team potency. Team potency is nothing more than team effectiveness and team unity. They chose to use the terminology of team potency. Hypothesis number 2, process clarity positively relates to A, team performance, and B, team organizational citizenship behavior from here on out, known as OCB, through partial, mediating, effective team potency. H3, servant leadership relates positively to A, team performance, and B, team OCB through partial, mediating, effective of team potency. And hypothesis number 4, servant leadership moderates the relationship between A, goal clarity, and B, process clarity and team potency such that relationships are stronger the more the leader engages in servant leadership. This study was conducted throughout 5 banks within China. The study was limited to those employees who had been within the banking industry for a minimum of 6 months. 570 employees representing 95 teams were invited to participate. 80 of those team members were considered upper-level managers. 304 employees responded to any questions and survey, representing a 53.3% participation rate. And every team's performance and organizational citizenship behavior was rated by 2 upper-level managers. As we continue on with data analysis for article number 2, we see once again that 59% of the respondents were men. We have got to find out what is going on with the women and why they will not respond to these surveys. The authors tested the hypotheses with hierarchical linear modeling. The authors concluded that goal clarity and servant leadership has significant levels of consistency within an organization. The servant leadership scale exhibited moderate reliability coefficients. Positive relationships were found between servant leadership and goal clarity. The findings of this article emphasize that the role servant leadership plays in promoting overall effectiveness within an organization. The strength of this article is simply that the article is peer-reviewed scholarly article. External validity is achieved by collecting data from 5 organizations. Internal validity is achieved because the data was collected from employees and from upper level managers. Well, there are weaknesses in article number 2. The sample of respondents was limited to the banking industry. It would have been helpful if instead of utilizing 5 different banking industry organizations, had there been a variety of organizations so you can see if the outcomes from the evidence-based research are applicable in other organizations as well. The banking industry could be generalized or considered a traditional work group. Why? Because they do the same job all the time, although they may be allocated to different locations, but usually their outcomes are pretty much consistent with each other, and there's no a lot of variety in the work that is performed within the traditional work team. Cross-functional teams and virtual teams may not yield positive results. Why? We've learned that it takes a longer time for virtual team members to build a cohesive unit where they depend on each other, and they depend on each other for information to be conveyed in a efficient manner on behalf of the team or the group. We also figured out that some relationships could be influenced by the common method variance. The common method variance may be a concern when self-report questionnaires are used to collect data at the same time from the same participants. So there may be some concern of the common method variance in the way the information was collected. So my recommendations for Brookshore Industries are as follows. As noted in article number 2, Antecedents of Team Potency and Team Effectiveness, an examination of goal and process clarity in servant leadership, one of the most important aspects of servant leadership is ensuring that your organization has clear vision and direction. As a leader, it is your responsibility to ensure that the followers know exactly where they're going and how to get the job done. We need to ensure that the employees of Brookshore Industries are aware of, number 1, why we are here, why we seek to serve the constituents and the people in the Midwest. We need to know and ensure our employees that if we all work together to achieve one goal, then great things will happen and the organization will remain successful. We need to also ensure that everyone is aware of the guiding organizational goals and objectives. What is guiding us in order to achieve overall greatness in our industry? And finally, we have to tell our employees what our goals are and what we want them to specifically focus on. I believe that if we come together as an organization, set clear and concise goals and objectives, we will be able to achieve in the beginning moderate success. And if we continue on the path of using servant leadership, we will see overall effectiveness throughout the organization. In conclusion, I will state that throughout the submission of these 2 articles for your consideration, if you've noticed any gaps in the literature, or if you've noticed any contradictions in the way the 2 different materials were presented, let me begin by stating that anytime a new approach is offered, conceptual work oftentimes precedes evidence. While it has been noted that many authors are seeking to advance and increase the studies of servant leadership, we're still working off of conceptual work as opposed to evidence-based research, but that is slowly changing. In conclusion, the world is in need of servant leaders, leaders who put the needs of others first. Let's put the needs of others first here. Thank you.